All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Secular Sekai with Tridents Against Tyrants, and thanks for tuning in. Uh, Apologies for not being available this weekend. I don't know what happened, but I got really sick with something, and I tried to power through it to do the stream at a different time over the weekend, but I just needed rest. I was I was not in good shape. So, yeah, thank you everybody for your patience and glad that you're all here today. All right. Feeling better today, so let's get into it. We got quite a bit of news to go over today. I see Anna, Ozzy Bugga, It Wasn't Me, Mitch Ashdown, Pietro, Dolly. Hey, good to see you, Dolly. Uh, yeah, Robert Jonasar. Welcome, everybody. All right. So, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it without wasting any time. And as a reminder, um, if anyone wants to make a donation to soldiers, please use PayPal or Monobank. If neither of those work, uh, and super chats are the only way that'll work, just be sure to put a comment saying you want it to go towards soldiers. Otherwise, unless there's a comment that says otherwise, super chats support the channel. All right, and let's go ahead and get started. Oh, wait. Please tell me that this works. Yes, there we go. Okay. So, first piece of news, as it says in the title. Hold on. I have to get this URL. And I'm putting it into chat right now. Also, for everybody who's here, aside from getting sick, I just got bogged down with a bunch of government paperwork and stuff I had to do here recently. I'm uploading today, right after the stream. I'm catching up on quite a few things for the channel. There should be 2 new videos coming up here pretty soon. One of them I'm going to upload today. The other one, I think maybe has a minor edit. And then it'll be going up quite soon as well. So right after this stream, keep an eye out for the new videos that are going to be going up. I think you'll find them interesting. And then there's a third video which still needs editing. I finally have help with this channel, which has been immensely. I'm very thankful for that. It's been immensely helpful. So today's kind of my catch-up day. I'm talking with my new editor, who has been very, very helpful, extremely helpful. Sorting out accounts related to the channel, getting some of those updated with another friend who's also helping me out with some of that. And I'll be messaging another good friend of the channel who's been here quite consistently, and about them possibly helping out a bit as well. So yeah, to everybody who has been helping out, I just want to say thank you very much. It's very appreciated. Because it takes a village, and it helps a lot. Especially since YouTube isn't my full-time job, and I have a lot of things Ukraine related and not Ukraine related outside of YouTube. So thank you very much, everybody. All right. Anyway, enough of that. Let's jump right into it. Come on. Here we go. Share button. Ah, damn. Okay, hold on. And there we go. All right. Oh yes, but I'm having to use this new plugin. So hopefully, yeah, it doesn't fit everything perfectly. I really wish I could. Hmm. Yeah, I really wish that I could full screen reading. Get this to fit nicely like I had with the other plugin. Okay. Let me see. Maybe there's a way. No. Well, it's only a tiny little bit that trails off, so we'll be fine. We'll go with this. All right. Let's go. First piece of news. Putin apologizes for tragic incident involving Azerbaijan Airlines plane. And this is from The Guardian. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Saturday apologized to Ilham Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan, for what the Kremlin said was a tragic incident in the Russian airspace involving the Azerbaijan Airlines plane that crashed in Kazakhstan on December 25th. The Kremlin said as the aircraft attempted to land in Grozny, the town of Mozdok and there we go, and Vladikavkaz were being attacked by Ukrainian combat drones, and Russian air defense was repelling these attacks. The Kremlin said Putin told Aliyev without saying that Russian air defense hit the plane. There we go. Oh, wow. Actually, this is quite short. Okay. No, it's not short. It just has a lot of stuff before it. Well, here's a few other highlights before we go into the rest of the article. For multiple things that have happened this week, Belarus's authoritarian leader Alexander Lukashenko pardoned 20 more people that rights activists describe as political prisoners. A statement on the president's website said Saturday. The announcement came amid persistent oppression in the run-up to presidential elections next month that are likely to extend Lukashenko's decades-long rule. So, there are protests in Georgia. Uh, I doubt. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Maybe there will be protests in Belarus. But a lot of protesters have already either been imprisoned, killed, or are now in the diaspora, have been forced into exile. So it'll be interesting to see if next month is calm or if there's more pressure put on the regime in Belarus. Vladimir Putin on Saturday apologized to Ilham Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan, for what the Kremlin said was a tragic incident involving an Azerbaijan Airlines plane. Yep, we read that. The Kremlin said at the time, Grozny, Mozdok, and Vladikavkaz were being attacked by Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles, and Russian air defense systems repelled these attacks. The Kremlin added that civilian and military specialists were being questioned. In the conversation with Putin, Aliyev emphasized that the Azerbaijan Airlines passenger plane encountered external physical and technical interference while in Russian airspace, resulting in a complete loss of control. Zelensky says Russia must provide clear explanations for the plane crash. Posting on X, he said, the key priority now is a thorough investigation to provide answers to all questions about what really happened. Russia must provide clear explanations and stop spreading disinformation. It's good that Zelensky is demanding that, but we all know, I mean, it's the modern day fake federation. Um, Anyone in Russia who wants to be truthful and doesn't want to engage in this imperialist mindset and basically commit crimes and then make excuses for them afterward, um, they're pretty much silenced. They're either in exile or kind of just forced to be quiet because their local republic or oblast is, you know, forced to comply under Muscovite rule. So, yeah. Um, I think we're more likely to get blood from a stone to get than to get anything more than uh, a weak apology without admitting wrong from Vladimir Putin on anything. But I do praise Zelensky for diplomatically putting the pressure onto the enemy. The EU's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, has called for, I probably mispronounced that, maybe it's Kaya Kallas, has called for a swift, independent probe into the Azerbaijan Airlines crash. Russian Federal Security Service, FSB, says it has foiled a plot by Ukraine to kill a high ranking Russian officer and a pro Russian war blogger with a bomb hidden in a portable music speaker. This reminds, wow, it, do you know, hold on, do you guys remember during the Cold War? Well, I'm sure some people would remember, and some people, uh, oh, yeah, some people would remember, and some people maybe just know of it from history books. But do you guys remember during the Cold War between the U.S. and the Soviet Union? There was all the paranoia, and we have like the modern day, not stereotypes, but tropes about you know secret agents, about spies, and like things that are disguised as everyday objects, but really they're like bombs or they're special gadgets and whatever the case might be. Um, that's what this reminds me of. There must be so much paranoia now in Russia. It's kind of like when it's like when the CIA in the United States was trying to assassinate Castro decades ago, and it was like to the point where there were declassified plans eventually that involved hiding explosives, special miniature explosives into a cigar, because he really enjoyed Cuban cigars, in order to try to get him to put it in his mouth, sneak it onto his desk sometime. Uh, that's what all this is. This is like, oh man, I'm sorry. I guess I'm still a little bit sick. I have a little bit of a nosebleed. That's what this reminds me of. Um, so where was I? Oh, yeah. Uh, that's it's just really interesting. Um, and it really goes to show that when you have a war that is so huge, so long, and so pervasive within society, that stories of assassinations and espionage start to come up this frequently, when bombs are being put into things, not just conventional weapons, but into music speakers and into scooters, because I remember the successful assassination that happened recently with the scooter. Um, man, you know that this war is going to go on for a long time, guys. Even if there's a ceasefire, even if there's like a peace agreement decided upon at some point, um, I think there will be people. There will be high-ranking Russian officials who will be like so paranoid. They're going to be demanding that their aides aid, test out everything for them, their food, their entertainment equipment, their vehicles. Because at this point they won't know, am I about to be killed by my government or by the Ukrainian government or any of the other governments that really hate us all around the world? So anyway, a bit of a rant, but um, it's unfortunate that that this particular attempt was found by the Russian intelligence services, but you can be certain there will definitely be more. And they've had a lot of failures recently. For example, the internally the attack on the music hall. So yeah, FSB is kind of lacking in their ability, I would say. Germany said the suspected sabotage of an undersea uh, water power cable linking Finland and Estonia this week was a wake-up call that demanded new EU sanctions against Russia's shadow fleet, Agence France Presse reports. Yeah, more sanctions, because that's the appropriate action to take. The sanctions do help. They actually do. But the fact that that's all that's happening, I mean, I'll say this. When it comes to defense, FSB and GRU and other agencies within Russia are kind of lacking, and that's for many reasons, including the fact that they have so much fucking land to cover and people to cover when it comes to their country. Quote unquote country, the fake federation. But when it comes to offense and screwing with other countries, and they don't even have to do all that much sometimes. Sometimes it's literally just nudging a little bit existing problems within Western societies. And sometimes it is a lot more extensive. And Russian involvement and interference is more insidious than people realize. But when is there going to be more than just sanctions? When is NATO going to step up and will actually have someone place troops into Ukraine? Or right on the border of Belarus? Or right on the border? Like, it doesn't even have to be Ukraine, guys. You know what? If NATO really wanted to fuck with Russia, why are there not just a large concentration of troops being put on the borders in, say, Finland and the Baltics and basically every other place that borders Russia other than Ukraine, and really freak them out and make them think, oh God, they're positioning pieces. They're actually preparing for an invasion or something. Even if they don't actually do an invasion, something needs to be done that puts pressure on Russia beyond just sanctions. That's my opinion. Russia's SVR, Foreign Intelligence Service, accused American and British spies of trying to provoke attacks against Russian military bases in Syria in a bid to force the evacuation of the bases. The state-run RAA news agency said on Saturday the SVR gave no evidence for its allegation. Okay, well, I'll rescind part of what I just said because the humiliation of Russia and Syria and the toppling of that regime, that is one thing that has definitely worked against them. Ukraine said on Saturday it had struck a storage and maintenance depot for long-range Shahed drones in Russia's Oryol region, adding that this had significantly reduced Russia's ability to launch mass drone attacks on Ukraine. Okay, that's good. Very good. Russia's state-owned Gazprom Energy Corporation has announced that it will halt gas supplies to Moldova from January 1st due to a debt dispute during a state of emergency over energy security in the tiny country. The move comes as several Eastern European countries brace for an end to Russian gas supplies. Agence France Presse reports. We're going to have an update on this in an upcoming article. Also, I don't think that it's coincidental that this is happening right now. Shortly after pro-Russian bloggers are celebrating the evacuation of the Georgian president from the presidential is it the presidential palace? In Georgia, the protests are continuing still, but the legitimate president, the pro-EU president, is basically has been forced out of the buildings, the halls of government, and the newly illegitimate appointed president is, conducting business, which is unfortunate, but honestly, it comes down to the protests. And as long as the president is on the ground with them protesting or working with them, shows that she is one of the people and not going to put up with it, that'll make a difference. So Moldova is being targeted next. And so Moldova really needs to be prepared. And if possible, create stronger ties with Ukraine, and the two of them work together to take care of the Transnistria situation. Because no one else is going to do it for Moldova. And if they need help, Ukraine is the place to look. North Korean troops deployed in Russia's Kursk region are suffering heavy losses and being left unprotected by the Russian forces they are fighting alongside, according to Ukraine, while the U.S. says Russia and North Korean generals see the soldiers as expendable. Yep, no surprise there. The United States is expected to announce on Monday that it will send $1.25 billion in further military assistance to Ukraine. The Biden administration is pushing to get as much aid to Kiev as possible before the U.S. President, Joe Biden, leaves office on January 20th and is succeeded by the Republican President-elect Donald Trump, who appears to be resistant to such spending to help Ukraine. I am still concerned about this, very concerned, among many other things with Donald Trump. But, yeah, there's a excuse me. There is a possibility that Donald Trump will still provide sufficient assistance to Ukraine if assisting Ukraine can be pitched as beneficial as a business transaction for him. And it's possible that those who are much more closely involved in those negotiations are getting that message through to him. Only time will tell. The thing with Trump is he is a complete wild card. With Biden, with Harris, with any vanguard, old guard Democrats, we probably could expect a bit more of the same, which would just be we'll go through all of the channels and we'll make sure everyone, Democrat and Republican, agree on this because we really, really have to, and there's not going to be any executive decision or action on this, and it could hurt polling chances, etc., etc. So basically, more of a little bit of aid, but not enough to really make a difference in this war, and making sure it actually gets sent after it's pledged. So yeah, I have no idea. It's I don't like Donald Trump. I don't trust Donald Trump. But I do trust that regardless of what the topic is, if someone can convince him that it would be personally beneficial to do it, that he'll at least try to get things done. We'll see. Depends on how dysfunctional his cabinet ends up being, which it's not promising to be very stable already as things stand from what I've seen. Russia's foreign ministry said it had responded to a new package of EU sanctions by significantly expanding a list of EU and EU member state officials banned from entering Russia. Okay. Well, screw you too, Russia. Italian police said on Saturday that they were investigating cyber attacks claimed by a pro-Russian group targeting several websites, including Milan's airports and the foreign ministry. Regular flights between Ashgabat and Moscow are to be suspended for a month from December 30th after an Azerbaijan Airlines jet crashed in Kazakhstan, the state-run TASS news agency reported on Saturday, citing Turkmenistan's national air carrier. Interesting. So, I don't think it's going to become a huge thing, although Azerbaijan, I'm sure, is quite upset over that plane being shot down. But you got to remember, Russia is invading Ukraine and severely interfering with Georgia in the hopes of basically creating a situation where they feel like they don't, quote unquote, have to invade, but they may or may not be willing to invade if pro-EU protesters succeed in preventing a political takeover or preventing the full political takeover of Georgia, like Ukrainians prevented it in their country right before the war started in 2014. And Azerbaijan has machinations that already has invaded and attacked Armenia before. And Nagorno-Karabakh is now under Azeri control, Azerbaijani control. And so next is the Zanzibar corridor that separates the western exclave, western Azerbaijan from eastern Azerbaijan. Basically, in order to get from east to west, you have to go through Armenia. So they probably, with support from Turkey, are going to attempt to invade Armenia again. So, what's interesting is Armenia is a former ally of Russia and now is looking toward places like France for support and help to defend themselves. If Russia really pisses off Turkey and Azerbaijan, with Armenia and Georgia being so close to one another, with Turkey literally bordering Georgia, um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things play out. To the best of my knowledge, they're both active in conflict and in espionage in the same region of the Caucasus. So it makes me wonder if this will have any effect on their interactions or rivalry between the two sides over time. I don't think so. Uh, but if there's any other follow-up incidents aside from this airline crash, then quite possibly. So we'll have to wait and see. Russia has lost 784,200 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of its full-scale invasion on February 24th, 2022. The General Staff... Oh, and I saw that Ozzy Bugga shared on Blue Sky. Thank you very much. And everybody who has shared on Discord, Blue Sky, X... I'm not on X. but Facebook, basically anywhere. Really appreciate it. Thank you for doing so. Oh, Anna says there's an action. Oh, before I forget, because I did forget, I just jumped right into the Q&A. I'm opening up, or I'm sorry, I jumped right into the articles. Let me open the Q&A. All right, that's open now. That exclave has a road to Turkey, so if Azeris take eastern Armenia, they have an overland route to Turkey. Yes, 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 yes. Yes! Not each... wait, is that the right spelling for it? It's... Yeah, Nakhchivan. Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic. Which I always... I remember it, but I always... Because I only look it up occasionally, the name of it. Um, I sometimes forget the name of that exclave, so Nakhchivan. Nakhchivan. Um, yes, and exactly. No, the whole point of it is Armenia is in the way, and Armenia still is not happy with Turkey because of the Armenian genocide a century ago, uh, and you know, uh, and Azerbaijan and Armenia both claim different parts of each other's territory, even when they don't claim territory from one another. The map, if you look at the map between Armenia and Azerbaijan, it's just insane. I mean, there are just tiny little dots of, on both sides, little tiny dots that are inside of Armenia that, technically belong to Azerbaijan, and little pieces of Armenians, I think, inside Azerbaijan that belong to Armenia, technically. Um, it's not sustainable, and uh, that combined with cultural differences, differences in religion, differences in international allies and alliances really result in continued animosity, lots of animosity between the two sides. It's very unfortunate. But anyway, yeah, you're absolutely right. So at some point, if they do annex more of southern Armenia, hopefully not the entire country, but if they annex southern Armenia, which is really what they want, then Turkey and Azerbaijan will basically be one step closer to become. It basically would establish the Turkish Empire. Because in Azerbaijan, years and years of misinformation, well, years and years of propaganda, years and years of information prep work, if you will, preparatory information dissemination has told a lot of Azeri people, no, 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 don't even call yourself Azeri. Don't You're Azerbaijani, but you're not. You're actually Turkic. You're a Turk. You're a Turkic people. You are Turks. You might as well be Turkish. You're just one step away from it. Um, Kind of like the situation some say with Kosovo and Albania. Many Kosovars also ethnically they identify as Albanian, and therefore, Serbia feels that if Kosovo were ever fully recognized as independent, it wouldn't stay that way. It would just end up combining, uniting in one way or another with Albania. Or what's another good example? Um, da, 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 da. Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kosovo. I had another one. What was the other example I was going to use? Well, in any case, it flew out of my head. Sorry, I'm still a little sick. um, in any case, Azerbaijan and Turkey kind of are doing this prep work. Oh, yeah, they're doing this prep work almost for a relationship like Russia and Belarus, where it's like we're still separate, internationally recognized as two different countries, but eventually our borders will touch and we'll be like one giant united country, We'll basically break down all the ties, make our own little mini EU sort of thing, our own mini Turkish Azerbaijan union uh between the two countries and basically start to revive the Ottoman Empire, similar to how Russia's trying to revive the Russian Empire or Soviet Union or basically anything else from history when Russia was, even larger, had more land mass, more resources, etc. So, anyway, that's kind of went off on a tangent, but that's the gist of it. That's part of the reason why Russia and Turkey are adversaries, they're rivals, because they both are similar in a lot of ways, but of course their differences also are hard for them both to overlook. And more importantly, they're both empire building. They both have aspirations to rebuild their empires. There's a lot of countries that are engaging in rhetoric and actions that are imperial in nature. Even even now, the United States is starting to eye Greenland again, and it's coming up in the news. And the idiot who's about to be in power there is talking about has openly talked about things like military action or joke in Mexico or joking about you know making Canada the 51st US state. And those are not funny jokes. So yeah, they really aren't. Um, we're just entering a time now where all of us are living in the post World War One era. We're living in the post empires fighting each other for power era, and it's quite unfortunate. All right, let's see. Let's continue onward because I'm still not back at the main point of this article. Um, But oh, I see a couple of comments. Wizard of Ooze says it seems to me a useful diplomatic opening for the West to help fix transport links between the parts of Azerbaijan to promote some goodwill. Yes, but remember. Parts of the West are trying to help as Armenia and stabilize that country because Armenia is extremely vulnerable and has no allies. And parts of the West are also trying to basically have a better relationship with Azerbaijan, both to avoid another war popping up, but also because, well, it's surprisingly an attractive trade destination, a potential ally against Iran. Because Azerbaijan and Iran do not like each other. Like there's benefits to being closer with Azerbaijan, but by extension, if you build bridges with Azerbaijan, you're building bridges with Turkey, and we all know that there's drama between Western nations and Turkey for multiple reasons. Um, so it gets really complicated. Basically, uh, the enemy of my enemy is my friend doesn't really apply here. There's there's a desire to be friends with both sides for different reasons, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. It requires careful statecraft. Anyway, oh, Armenia has oil, gas, larger population. Armenia has a higher GDP per capita, though, due to their culture of valuing education, says Ozzy Bugga. This is true. This is true. Um, but remember, oligarchy and resource hunger. So, yeah, oil, gas, larger population, larger military. For many, that's going to be more tempting than doing business with Armenia, especially since that GDP per capita can be, they're vulnerable, like I said. It can be easily disrupted if enemy forces decide to find, if they find a way to disrupt the Armenian economy, then Armenia is kind of left in an even more even more vulnerable position than it is, which is, yeah, very unfortunate. Anyway, all right, back to the original topic. Israel has excellent relations with Azerbaijan. Ah, yeah, that doesn't surprise me too much. Because remember what I just said, Azerbaijan is not on good terms with Iran. And between the two, if your goal, instead of screwing with Russia or, um, morally doing something that might be considered like avoiding a genocide, basically avoiding an invasion of another country, which would be, strengthening Armenia to deter another invasion. Um, if your goal is to take down Iran, then it makes a lot more sense to be on friendly terms with Azerbaijan instead of Armenia for many different reasons. Um, but again, that's trusting that Turkey and Azerbaijan would actually assist when the time comes to fully disrupt and cause the Iranian regime, the Ayatollahs, to collapse. So, yeah, we'll see. All right. Back to actual news. Although I do love the conversation. Russia has lost 784,200 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of its full-scale invasion on February 24th, 2022. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces reported. This number includes 1,690 Russian casualties over the past day. The Biden administration pledged to approve fresh military aid to Ukraine, including crucial air defense systems. John Kirby, the U.S. National Security Communications Advisor, said the promised U.S. security assistance package was expected to be announced in the next couple of days. Slovakia has confirmed its readiness to host any peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, despite Kyiv's accusation that it is playing into the hands of Vladimir Putin. The Slovak Prime Minister, Robert Fico, said on Facebook late on Friday, if someone wants to organize peace talks in Slovakia, we'll be ready and hospitable. Yeah, no, Slovakia is going the way of Hungary, and there's a few other countries that unfortunately are seeing major far right and far left, basically just extremist candidates and rhetoric come up in the national discourse. I think another one that I saw recently was, is it Bulgaria that has another election coming up soon? No, Croatia. Croatia. So yeah, we already have Hungary. Romania was, potentially going to be on the list, but thankfully, well, yeah, that election was annulled for citing foreign interference. So that comes with its own drama and fallout, but that at least prevents pro Kremlin individuals from being at the reins of power. Uh, and then Slovakia is still internally split, but Fico's influence is very much alive, and the assassination attempt on him did not succeed. Uh, so if it had, it might be a very different world in Slovakia right now. Uh, and beyond that, Croatia. Keep an eye on Croatia. They have upcoming elections, and Croatia, if If the people of Croatia are not careful, they will end up like Slovakia, meaning playing more and more into the Kremlin's hands. The Balkans are little by little falling into Russian propaganda. Uh, and that is a big problem, guys. Um, Imagine if Bosnia and Herzegovina eventually ends up stabilized and pro-Russian, and Slovakia and Croatia. Serbia already is pretty much. Uh, all that leaves is Albania and Kosovo. So, yeah, don't underestimate the enemy. Don't underestimate the Kremlin. And the West really needs to unite in successfully fighting off information warfare that is pro far right, pro um, anti EU, and pro, well, in this case, Russia, pro anyone else other than the EU. Okay. All right. The Kremlin said, back to the original topic, although all of that was very interesting. So there's your huge news update for anything you guys hadn't already caught recently on the related to the war and other topics surrounding the war, indirectly related. In case you missed it earlier, Vladimir Putin has apologized for a tragic incident in which an Azerbaijan Airlines plane crashed on Christmas Day, but stopped short of admitting Russia was responsible. The Kremlin said in an official statement that Putin had spoken to Azerbaijan's president Ilham Aliyev on Saturday by phone in his first comments since the crash, which killed 38 of the 67 people on board. Jeez. Vladimir Putin apologized for the tragic incident that occurred in Russian airspace and once again expressed his deep and sincere condolences. Oh, and I see that we had a donation, and we're up to 22,097.92 hryvnia. Thank you very, very much. And that's another thing I'm doing today. I'm speaking with Anton about updates and about some more uh, potential contacts of mine, possibly working a bit more closely, helping out with the fundraiser or helping out with logistics, with supplies. So thank you very much. It's very appreciated. All right. Vladimir Putin apologized, blah, 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 blah. Here we go. Ukraine's president. Oh, Vladimir Putin apologized for the tragic incident that occurred in Russian airspace and once again expressed his deep and sincere condolences to the families of the victims and wished a speedy recovery to the injured, the statement said. Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, meanwhile, said he had expressed condolences to President Aliyev and called on Russia for a clearer explanation of the crash. Belarus authoritarian. Oh. It's a short update. All the rest of these are more detailed regarding the other topics that we were looking over. Well, you know what? Let's take a look. Here we go. EU urges swift independent probe into Azerbaijan Airlines crash. The European Union's top diplomat on Saturday called for a swift independent probe into the Azerbaijan Airlines crash, after the US suggested the incident may have been caused by a Russian anti-aircraft missile. Kaya Kallas, the EU's foreign affairs chief, posted on X, reports that Russian fire could have caused the Azerbaijan Airlines plane are a stark reminder of MH17. You guys remember that? Guys, remember when that plane got shot down, the Malaysian plane? Yep. I call for a swift, independent international investigation. Our thoughts are with the families and friends of the victims. I wish for a speedy recovery to the injured. Azerbaijan president highlighted holes in aircraft during phone call with Putin. Here's the response from Azerbaijan. Regarding the phone call with Putin, Baku's president said in a statement, President Ilham Aliyev emphasized that the Azerbaijan Airlines passenger plane encountered external physical and technical interference while in Russian airspace, resulting in a complete loss of control. It, added Aliyev, highlighted that the multiple holes in the aircraft's fuselage, injuries sustained by the passengers and crew due to foreign particles penetrating the cabin mid-flight, and testimonies from surviving flight attendants and passengers confirm evidence of external physical and technical interference. So basically, uh, either a missile went off and exploded, causing shrapnel, or bullets flew into this anti-aircraft bullet rounds, or rounds uh, from something, from a combat aircraft of some sort or anti-aircraft weaponry, appears to have damaged this civilian plane mid-flight. Russia's foreign ministry said on Saturday it had responded to a new package of European Union sanctions by significantly expanding a list of EU and EU member state officials banned from entering Russia. Wow. I think it's just reiterating some of the stuff we already read earlier. Full statement from the Kremlin. We are getting more from Reuters on the conversation between Putin and Ilham Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan. In a statement, the Kremlin said President Vladimir Putin apologized for the tragic incident that occurred in Russian airspace and once again expressed his deep and sincere condolences to the families of the victims and wished a speedy recovery to the injured. It was noted in the conversation that the Azerbaijani passenger aircraft, which was traveling according to its schedule, repeatedly tried to land at Grozny Airport. At that time, Grozny, Mostok, and Vladikavkaz were being attacked by Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles, and Russian air defense systems repelled these attacks. Aliyev told Putin the passenger plane was subjected to extraneous physical and technical interference in Russian airspace, completely lost control, and was diverted to Aktau, Reuters added. So, um, Russia is at fault here, but I will also say, why the hell was Azerbaijan clearing their passenger planes to go through Russian airspace? Like, honestly, the two sides might be rivals, but they get more out of the West. They get more out of ignoring one another or tacitly, quietly cooperating on different topics. The Turkish Azerbaijan alliance and the Russian Belarus alliance, than by antagonizing one another. So this is a kind of a rare occurrence to publicly come into the limelight like this. Um, Eventually, the two sides would clash if they succeed in building their empires. So, if Russia gets away with all of its crimes and it annexes the stolen territory from uh, Ukraine, and it overthrows any political opposition in Georgia and convinces the new puppet government in Georgia to enter into. Remember how I mentioned that Russia and Belarus have their own little mini EU, like the Russia Belarus Federation or Federal Union? I'm just going to look up the name of it because um, what is it called? It's called it's just called the Union State. So it's kind of funny. The United States is called the Union, the North and the South, the Union of the 50 states. And in Russia, a lot of people aren't aware of that, but they also have it's so weird. They have their fake federation, the Federation of the different republics and oblasts uh, of Russia itself, Moscovia. But then they kind of prepare Belarus to eventually be annexed because they are together in what is known as the quote unquote union state of Belarus and Russia. So, assuming that the two sides actually succeeded in their current goals, not including anything else they want to do, which would be Russia successfully ending this war, keeping territory, and avoiding a second war, basically letting decades pass and the world normalizes. Oh, yeah, okay, the stolen Ukrainian territories, they're Russian now. They're de facto Russian. They're part of Russia. And basically letting future generations not care about history and therefore ignore everything that's happened during this war. If they succeed in that, if they succeed in overthrowing completely any real opposition in Georgia, force them all into exile, take violent control of Georgia, and convince them to join the Union state with them, along with Belarus, so then it would become the Russian, Belarusian, Georgian Union. And if they succeed in several other goals, let's say, like claims on the island territories that they have disputes with Japan over, or uh, I can't even think of any others right now, but any of the other machinations they have to rebuild an empire. If they succeed in those things, and Turkey and Azerbaijan succeed in their goals, which would be weakening Iran so they can be the one regional power, uh, whether they balkanize or without Iran changing so drastically that it might become antagonistic, like a new government that would be more in line with the West and more against Turkey and Azerbaijan, or an Islamist government, instead of Shia, just a Sunni extremist government in Iran. Uh, but if they succeed in weakening Iran without causing a complete shift in how it operates, and taking southern Armenia and building their own union state, I guess you might call it, between Turkey and Azerbaijan. At that point, because Georgia, at that point, maybe you could see a clash, but I don't think so. And the only reason I say that is because Russia has no intention of trying to annex all of Georgia. Even if they invaded and they de facto, annexed it, Russia isn't stupid. They aren't going to, you know, at most they would try to let Georgia into their little union state. They would not get rid of what they consider a buffer zone. Belarus is a buffer zone for Russia. Georgia is a buffer zone for Russia. They can be part of a union or whatever, but the bottom line is Russia doesn't care about Belarus. Russia doesn't care about Georgia. They just want compliant governments and people who will give them who will give them a place where a war can happen or where a buffer zone can exist between them and the rest of the world. That's all that they care about, period. So eventually we might see, but if they both succeed, we might see those two empires clash, but I don't see that anytime soon. Anyway, that passes through Georgia. All right, next. Aliyev told. All right, this is the last portion, and then we're going to move on to the next article. Putin apologizes for tragic incident involving Azerbaijan Airlines plane. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Saturday apologized to Ilham Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan. Wait. No, we already read that. For some reason, it's duplicating text. All right. All right. On to the next article. Let's see. Let me put it into chat right quick. This one is from the Kiev Independent. All right. Slovak defense minister urges Ukraine to, you see what I said earlier about Slovakia and Croatia and all of the Balkans being at risk politically turning away from the West, especially, especially, especially when they see something like how close, oh God, why am I blanking on the name? Le Pen. When they see how close Le Pen gets to gaining winning the presidency or gaining power in France, when they see Donald Trump successfully win re-election despite basically turning the United States into a kakistocracy, governance by the least qualified, governance by the incompetent, which, yeah, in many ways, Donald Trump is doing that to the United States. Despite, when countries see stuff like that, when they see the global shift in other countries, it makes it easier for their far right and far left parties to follow suit. For extremist parties, for parties of disruption. We are in a time of disruption worldwide right now, for better and for worse. Right now, mostly for worse. Mostly for worse. There may be some benefits in certain countries with all of the changes happening, but you know, morally speaking, I would say the shift is not good, and the chances for additional wars are getting increasingly higher. Anyway, Slovak defense minister urges Ukraine to consider territorial concessions for, quote, war to stop immediately. Slovak defense minister Robert Kalinak said that Ukraine may need to cede some territory due to the realities on the ground. Slovak news agency TASR reported on December 29th. Completely unrelated, but I just want to point out how Slovak news agency TASR is just one letter away from being TASS. So, yeah, I take away from that what you will. All right. During a television interview, Kalinak claimed that Slovakia's priority is for an immediate ceasefire and peace negotiations. While he stated that Russia is undeniably the aggressor in the conflict and has violated international law, he said that post-war stability is more important than its precise borders. So basically, they want to conduct business, and they don't care about other people's lives. They just want the war to end. Ukraine does not realize it will never find itself between Germany and Switzerland, but will always share its longest border with the Russian Federation, he said. Well, Poland shares a border with Belarus. Finland shares a longest border with Russia. So, sorry, I'm going to keep reading, but I just want to say, fuck this opinion. Slovakia. If anyone listening knows anyone in either Czech Republic or Slovakia who is pro EU, who is anti Russian, who really is against this shift in rhetoric in the country, please reach out to them. Czech Republic has still stayed solidly in Ukraine's corner. Slovakia needs more pro EU. I won't use the word liberal, but it needs more business investment, and it needs a clear information dissemination shift toward thanking EU nations, European Union nations, for investing in Slovakia and helping people in Slovakia. Basically, information dissemination that lets the public thank allies in the West for assisting with that, instead of the popular opinion in Slovakia, which is that they are exploited by the West, exploited by the EU, and therefore should look for options outside of it. The Slovakia really, really needs a positive shift, because it's yeah, this has been going on for a while, and it really needs to stop. Um, Yeah, before we see it spread to Croatia and all the rest of the Balkans even more. Next thing you know, we're going to hear Montenegro uh, backing up Russia for some reason. So, yeah, I really do hope that we see a change, and that the international audience will not ignore this, but will actually invest in helping and in standing with pro EU and pro Ukraine groups in Slovakia, because that's what it takes. Like, we have to strengthen those bonds and not just say, "Oh, well, they're a lost cause," like Hungary. Because until Orban is dead and things force a shakeup in the Hungarian establishment, um, Hungary is not going to change anytime soon, but Slovakia could change, Bulgaria could change, Croatia could change, North Macedonia could change, and the West really needs to start giving a damn. Really needs to start giving a damn to make sure it doesn't lose support and allies both among the public and the governments in these countries. Um, that's my opinion. That's just my opinion. All right. All right, under Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico's leadership, Slovakia took a sharp foreign policy turn, halting military supplies to Ukraine from the Slovak armed forces stocks and adopting more Russian-friendly rhetoric. Fico already recently announced he had accepted the Kremlin's invitation to attend the Victory Day celebrations in Moscow next May. So, again, fuck Fico. He might as well be Yanukovych. He might as well be. What's the name of that guy who just had his. Excuse me. Election annulled in Romania. He might as well be Orban. Uh, you know, countries are picking sides, and poor statecraft from the United States and the EU is resulting in more of them quietly eyeing much closer ties with Russia. So, yeah. Let's continue on to the next article, which further addresses this. But first, oh man. But first, China is doing that in Bhutan. Oh, border creep. Yes, Cheryl, thank you for highlighting that because that is true. A lot of people don't even know that Bhutan exists, let alone the fact that China is preparing to pull a Tibet on Bhutan. Because Bhutan is the last country on Earth anything like Tibet before its invasion. All right. Yep. Ozzy Bugga says, I waste zero time looking to UN for anything. Coalition of the willing here in the global south, Ukraine is not an issue for the governments or population. This is true. This this is true. The UN is not fixing or doing anything. The UN is not about action. The UN is about talk. The UN exists just as a diplomatic table. That's it, everybody. It's a place where political conversations can occur. The UN is not like it's not like Star Trek where it's like the implied that it's this global government that has security control of the whole planet. The UN is literally just a table for people to talk at. The UN doesn't do anything. The UN says many things. And that is the gist of it. If you want conversation and negotiations, the UN is actually the best place to go for that, I would say. Because it's literally a place where everyone is forced to sit down and talk when they're tired of fighting each other. It started from the League of Nations, and the whole point of the League of Nations was to prevent another world war through talk instead of action. If you want action, you look toward NATO. If you want action, you look toward various military alliances around the world, or countries just do things by themselves. The UN doesn't do shit. France is interesting. It has a history of uniting behind the least worst option when it comes to the Le Pens due to its two-round electoral system, not to be underestimated, though. Yeah. Yeah. France does have a pretty interesting political setup. They've been through so many republics. It's changed around quite a bit over the years. The way that they conduct themselves politically, I mean. Uh, let's see here. The only states that seem to be totally solid are Poland, Balts, and Scandies. Well, uh, I mean Nordics as well. I mean, yeah, Poland, the Baltics, several Scandinavian countries, and yeah, pretty much the Nordics are solidly in Ukraine's corner. Sweden and Denmark and Finland. Yeah. No lands 2, solid Ukraine. Ah, Anna says, please hit the like button and subscribe and share. Thank you, Anna. And if you want to giggle, Google a lit of nations that sit on the UN Human Rights Council. Yep. All right. We're gonna move on to the next article, but yeah, that does make me laugh. Ozzy Bugga has a very good point about if you do want to laugh, just look at what countries sit on the UN Human Rights Council. I mean, again, it's all political, and you got to remember. I mean, the United Nations is about all of the countries on the planet being able to have the ability to talk to one another. The UN sometimes does good, and the UN sometimes does the exact opposite. It does damage. For example, giving legitimacy to authoritarian regimes and, uh, you know, giving propaganda to countries that don't respect human rights by saying, oh, allowing them to say, look, but we sit on the United Nations Human Rights Council. We respect human rights. Why else would we be there? It's literally the highest global position for, you know, quote unquote human rights respect that exists. So, yeah. As much as that is funny, it's also really, really sad because it's an example of the counteractive effect of the United Nations by humoring such countries and allowing them to have propaganda victories through their actions, their interactions at the UN. I mean, it's all political. Everyone's getting something out of the United Nations. And sometimes those things that they get are positive and beneficial to their people and even outside of their borders, other people in their continent or their area as a whole. And sometimes it's really, really negative. And like Saudi Arabia can continue to do a lot of the horrible shit that it does, um, and say, we respect human rights, but we respect human rights with religious adherence to theocratic law. And according to us, that's the right way to do things, so that counts as human rights. It's like, nah, man. No. Uh yeah. Anyway. All right. Mordor should have reapplied to the UN after the end of Soviet Union. Why did they still have a veto? Because they have nuclear weapons, Ronnie Vronkin. Very They have guns and bombs and nuclear weapons. Why was the United Kingdom not forced to reapply when it no longer existed as the British Empire? Because the empire is gone. The Commonwealth still exists, but the United Kingdom is a different country today from the British Empire of less than 100 years ago. I mean, if you have the bomb, if you have force, if you're a country who can do shit, good things or bad, with that capability, then the United Nations is going to leave you alone. You might get a finger wag. You might get a mandatory finger wag from the United Nations, but they're not going to do anything. Let me put it to you like this. If tomorrow Russia balkanized, or China balkanized, or the United States balkanized, if any of these nuclear powered, large, powerful countries broke apart, and I don't know, like let's just say United States was split immediately down the middle, half of them became one country, half of them another, or Russia became like 5 different countries, or China split and I don't know, some crazy alternate history where Taiwan was able to rally part of mainland China to fight alongside them, and you see like the Republic of China actually take control of a swath, like a portion of the mainland. If any of those situations happened, whichever side has the bomb will basically be allowed We'll be given special privilege. We'll be given special treatment within the United Nations. Why do you think Israel hasn't been, thrown out? Because even though I don't think they openly admit to it, Israel, I believe, it's a well-known fact that both Iran and Israel uh, have nuclear capabilities. If they don't outright admit to having the bomb, that they at least are at a point where they could quickly develop it and officially announce it to the whole world. So, yeah, my point being, um, if you're an organization that only talks but doesn't act, why the hell would you piss off the countries that have the ultimate form of action that can wipe out the entire species? The United Nations it's a two-tier system. Either you are a country that has or you are a country that has not. And believe me, world leaders across this entire planet are very aware of whether they are in the have or have not camp. And it is a point of major contention and anger, especially between the global south and, uh, I guess, the global north, we might call it. So Pakistan and India should also have a veto. Oh, I didn't say that, Ronnie. But they're not going to get kicked out. Look, even North Korea hasn't been kicked out. If we're talking the veto power, that has to do not only with nuclear power, but it also has to do with basically being one of the nations that molded and crafted the United Nations as an organization. Um, so, like, that's why Russia wasn't forced to reapply because they were a founding member. That's why the United Kingdom wasn't forced to reapply because they were a founding member. And uh, if the United States tomorrow no longer was united, if it was like split into smaller countries, whichever is the largest and most powerful of those countries that would claim, like Russia claims to be the successor of the Soviet Union, whatever that country would be that would claim to be the successor of the United States, it wouldn't be forced to reapply. It's just rules for thee, but not for me. It's I don't like it. I'm not saying that's the way it should be, but that's the way historically the United Nations operates. So again, I don't hate the United Nations, but I will criticize it all day long because it has so many problems. The United Nations is good for some things and horrible for other things, like preventing war once countries are actually, uh, you know, actually invading one another. It really only is helpful for preventing war by convincing countries not to go to war with one another, which it has failed at in recent years. Yeah, Mick Ashdown is right. Veto was the only way uh, they could get big powers to join and form the whole thing to begin with. But veto dooms it to never being functional. Exactly. So at the end of the day, really the only way you would get rid of that unfair, like I said, rules for thee, but not for me. The only way you would get rid of that, the unfairness of that veto, would be to like abolish the UN and replace it with some new organization, like a League of Nations 2.0 or something like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, every country that's large and powerful, the world's not a fair place, guys. The world is not a fair place, and any country that has power will seek ways to gain more power and to preserve their existing power. So, yeah, that that's basically it. Uh, but in any case, yeah, exactly. Very good points brought up. So, thank you for engaging in the conversation, everybody. All right, let me get back to the news now because we're already an hour and 14 minutes into the stream. And we've got a lot of news, but also I want to cover the front lines because that's why we're here, to find out what's happening with Ukraine, not just exclusively what's happening all around the world. Although there are a lot of interesting things that are always happening around the world, of course. All right, let's see. This one is from Bloomberg, and it's a follow-up to the article we just read about Slovakia. Oh, shoot. And right after I'm done with this, sorry, I'm remembering I have someone I need to meet in addition to posting the new video and the other stuff I've been doing related to the channel today. Today's my channel catch-up day and fulfilling promises to people to help them out with projects. So that's basically what my day looks like now that I'm recovered. All right. Here we go. Poland ready to help Ukraine if Slovakia cuts off power in gas spat. Poland is prepared to step up electricity exports to Ukraine if... Oh, seriously? Huh. Hold on. Well, alright, I think this didn't load fully, but let's see. Poland is prepared to step up electricity exports to Ukraine if Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico follows through on his threats to cut off backup power supplies to the war-torn country, a senior official said on Sunday. The Polish government stands ready to boost domestic power production to compensate for any imbalances that Ukraine's strained system would suffer in the event of a Slovak move, according to the official who asked not to be identified as the talks are private. Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Poland there have been spats between the two on a few things, but Poland, compared to other nations, has really stood by Ukraine through the thick and thin of a lot of this. So Poland has been a good neighbor. I'm really hoping Romania, especially... I'm really hoping that Romania and Moldova both end up closer to Ukraine like Poland has. The histories there are different, but they have a vested interest in making sure that the whole situation with Russia doesn't end up on their doorstep. And more importantly, I mean, I don't know what Romania really wants. I think Romania wants the status quo because it doesn't seem like Romania has much interest in quote unquote reunifying with Moldova, but they do want to have significant influence over the country, and they do want, I think, for Moldova to stabilize a bit more, but at the same time, maybe not. Moldova is, in terms of corruption and in terms of being able to quietly transport goods and services, kind of the equivalent of Romania 20 years ago. And I think Romania wants to keep its own image a bit squeaky clean, but still have that ability to easily conduct international business that is not so widely reported, openly reported. And I think one avenue for that makes it easier is the current status quo in Moldova. But yeah, at the end of the day, Romanians and Moldovans do care about each other. And the whole problem with Russia and Transnistria is something that can't be ignored forever. All right, anyway, hold on, let me check this because it's way shorter than I thought it would be. Let's see if the article loaded properly or not. It's also quite possible that it's just a very short stub article. But let's see. Oh, or that's why. Okay. I see. Subscribe now for uninterrupted access. We only get the opening part of the article because Bloomberg wants me to pay. Well, I'm not going to pay Bloomberg, so we're just going to make do with that short update. But bottom line is Poland is ready to help Ukraine if Slovakia does cut off the power. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope Czechia gets more involved and starts to put pressure on Slovakia since they used to be one country. Remember Czechoslovakia? well, the Czechia half is really supportive of Ukraine. Maybe there need to be some trilateral conversations between Ukraine, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic. Czechia, whichever people prefer. I've had some people get upset if I say Czech Republic, and some people get upset if I say Czechia. So I just say both now. So yeah, if you are someone who has a preference and you don't like either one of the names, I apologize. So I guess if there's no way to make everyone happy, I will just make everyone upset by saying both. That's usually how I go about things. I'm not here to make people happy. All right, I'm just here to tell you what's going on in the world. All right, next. Next. Last article, and then we're going to take a look at the map, and then we'll finish up the stream. Uh, so I can go take care of stuff, getting the new video ready for everybody. I think you will like this one. I'm gonna have it go up in. When is going to be the best time? I guess I'm gonna check. I'm gonna check my YouTube analysis, my statistics, to see what on average are the times when the most people are watching my videos. Uh, so I guess it'll either be in a few hours this evening, or it'll be tomorrow morning. Whichever one on average has the larger audience. But right after this stream, I'm going to go take care of that. Um, really quickly, let me check my phone to make sure I'm not getting blown up with messages about the thing I need to help with today. I will be right back. Okay, I am back. And thankfully, I am not. Surprisingly, I'm. Oh, wait. Oh, no, there they are. There are all of the messages, but not from the person I was expecting. Okay. Just go with Bohemia. It sounds way more glamorous for for the Czech Republic. Yeah. You're right. Oh man, I should just start saying that. Oh man, that's a really, really good point. So whenever I'm talking with people, I guess it would kind of be like when it would be like with Georgia. People are like, say only say Georgia or only say Republic of Georgia, and I say Sakartvelo because that's what they would call it in Georgian language anyway. So you're right. Maybe I should just start saying Bohemia, and people will wonder which century I'm from when I talk. That's funny. That's a good one. That's yeah. It's not inaccurate either because the Bohemian region still exists in modern day Czechia, Czech Republic. All right, now then. Hold on. There was a question here. I'd like to highlight it and answer it. And also, I'm going to check questions before we do this last article. Uh, Question from Cheryl. So is Trump just going to wash his hands of Europe? No, I don't think so. I think that Trump is I've it's bad business. Washing his hands entirely of Europe would be bad business. Trump will act, well, he'll play pretend like a child. He'll play the part of the strong man and say, "We're going to make Europe pay for themselves. We're going to make Mexico pay for a wall. We're going to make Denmark sell Greenland to us." Blah, 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 blah. He will talk a lot, but here's the thing, it's super concerning. We will take the Panama Canal, which actually is concerning because the United States did invade Panama in the 90s. And again, the UN didn't do shit about it. The rest of the world didn't do anything about it. Um, anyway, my point being, he's a man who's a lot of talk but not a lot of action. The biggest thing that people are concerned about, which they should be concerned about, is the roundup and detention of undocumented immigrants in the United States. Uh, and even with that, there's a lot of talk about it, and they probably will put it into action. But whether they actually do over 1 million people, or they just do like 100,000 people or 200,000 people, and really, really, blow it up and get people panicked and get people talking about it a whole lot, so they feel like, especially his supporters, feel like 100 or 200,000 people was 1 million or 2 million people. Um, that we have yet to see. So either he's going to completely crash the U.S. economy by following through with his unsustainable, projected to be horribly problematic deportation scheme, or uh, he'll just, like with the wall, he'll just partially do it and then pretend like he did the whole thing. And his supporters will pay so little attention and only care about their emotional fulfillment from what they get out of being a Trump supporter that they'll say, "Yeah, great. I mean, he couldn't fix everything, but he did something," and then pat themselves on the back. Aside from that, the man's a lot of bluster, but I don't see a lot of action on his part outside of covert operations like the assassination of that Iranian general, which wasn't very covert because it was revealed later on. Which, unspoken operations like that happen with every presidency, so that's not really unique to Donald Trump. All right. Don't let Trump's rhetoric distract you. Yeah, Trump can't even spell geopolitics. Correct. uh, anyway, let's see. Let's check questions real fast. Aussie Bugga asks, thoughts on the spate of arson attacks in Russia on seemingly random businesses openly by seemingly ordinary Russian citizens? It's not surprising. I mean, honestly, Russia is getting to a point where, things like that were pretty common, I think, right before the fall of the empire. I don't know about the Soviet Union. I mean, there was a lot of discontent, there was starvation, there were a lot of problems. I don't know about a lot of arson attacks before the fall of the Soviet Union, but it's not just Ukrainian intelligence, although I'm sure they are, targeting certain specific high-profile targets as well inside of the fake federation. Um, I mean, it's it's just everyday people being fed up. I mean, when people don't have money, they don't have a job, they've got dead relatives, they've got the concern about being conscripted into a war that's become more and more unpopular, but people are too afraid to speak out against it. I mean, people lash out. People do that by burning stuff. They do it by forming organizations, like far right organizations, or in the case of Chechnya, anti Kremlin Islamist and also secular. They both exist. Secular independence organizations. Uh, people flee the country. That's what if people can afford it and they're smart, they flee Russia. Uh, if they can't afford it and they're forced to go through all this bullshit, they either grit their teeth and bear it until death, or they start doing stuff like setting stuff on fire. Because what are they going to do? They're already throwing a shit ton of people in prison for, you know, the littlest, tiniest things like giving $5 to a Ukrainian charity or speaking badly about the dear leader or refusing a summons to go join the army. I mean, yeah. So, anyway, my thought on it would be that the whole world is going through it right now, but Russia especially. And a lot of Russian citizens are fed up. Russian citizens are fed up, but they don't want to be caught and they don't want to make a symbolic protest that changes nothing. You know who didn't make a symbolic protest? By holding up a blank piece of paper and then being surprised when that alone could get you hauled off by the police? Georgians. Ukrainians and Georgians. Ukrainians succeeded. They put up a hell of a fight and they succeeded in taking back their country. Georgia, Sakartvelo, it's still yet to be seen what the result would be. It's not looking good, but they are still fighting. And if you guys have seen the footage of like that guy, the engineering student who built a firework Gatling gun and fired it at the police while they were using high power water cannons on protesters. Like that's what you do. That's how you protest. Not peacefully and in, a little corner where people can pat you on the head and say, okay, yeah, yeah, we see you're upset. And then the government just proceeds to ignore you. You make them pay attention to you. Um, and in Russia, we never, to the best of my knowledge, we never really saw that. We didn't see a large organized effort. We didn't see young people, especially, outraged in Russia. And that's because young people in Russia are aware of and, jaded with the West as well. And don't get me wrong, I am supportive of the West in much of what it does. I would much rather live in most Western countries than Russia. But I'll say one thing: in addition to the disinformation and misinformation campaigns from Russia, um, one thing they unfortunately, are good at is actually, even though they'll spin it to be in their favor, actually reporting on legitimate criticisms of the West. And when they do that, even though they sprinkle their own, they fit it into their own propaganda, and intelligent people in Russia, read about and they learn about things like, say, the Iran-Contra affair decades ago, or CIA involvement in the global South, especially South American countries, or the list could go on and on and on. But when they read about and they learn about legitimate sins, I guess, for lack of a better word, grievances that the rest of the world have with the West, have with the United States or with the EU, um, and then they look at their government and they realize, well, this is also shit. People shut down. If there's no good guy, then why do people want to get involved? Because it's easy when there's a good guy who you can side with. Like, yeah, that country, they're organized and they'll work with me and they'll be my supporter. But when you feel like there is no good guy, when you feel like there is no point, and you realize you would have to get up off of on your feet and form your own organization or your own country that you feel aligns with your values of the world, um, you know, people don't want to do that. Even if they do want to do that, they will often get shut down because it's really hard to start something from nothing. So, anyway, my point being, I think that is a lot of Russian people expressing themselves the only way they know how, by uh, by disrupting things and causing like getting attention and really letting out their frustration, but at the same time, you know, not getting caught and not, I don't know, not taking a side with anyone. It's basically anarchy. You know what? It's anarchy. Let's put it into one word. I think that Russia is starting to see an anarchist epidemic. Young people who don't give a shit, and they feel like no one in the entire planet in the whole world really is good to them or good for them. And so if the whole world is, you know, uh, a tinderbox, then they want to be the ones to, you know, set the fire and watch it burn. So I could be wrong. Maybe there's more to it than that, but I think the spate of arson attacks is probably related to a growing epidemic of anarchist tendencies among younger people in Russia who want to fight somebody. They don't care who. Uh, it could be their government, it could be Ukraine, it could be the US, it could be the EU, whatever. Just anger directed wherever it may land. But I could be off. So, anyway, thanks for a great question, Ozzy. All right. Oh, and Mitch Ashton says spot on. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you being here, man. I really enjoy your analysis on things as well. That goes for like pretty much everybody here. I don't think we have any trolls right now. Like, I really like having, you know, hearing everyone's thoughts and opinions on these various topics. All right. Let me double check and make sure we don't have any other questions, and then we're going to move on to the last article, and then we're going to look at the deep state map. Here's something interesting. Ozzy Bugga says, and this is true, yeah. Most Moldovans have a Romanian passport. One Romanian said they felt about Moldova like the English do about the Scots. Yep, yeah, I'd say that's a pretty, not perfect, but a pretty accurate comparison in terms of sentiment, at least. Yeah. Let's see. Questions. I'm like scrolling up a whole lot. I think I answered Ronnie Rankin's question earlier. And I think that's it because actually it doesn't let me keep scrolling up. So there have been too many comments. If I missed a question that was in the comments, my apologies. But I don't see any more that are in the actual Q&A box. So I think we are good. All right, on to the next article, and then on to the on to the deep state map, and then I better go take care of things now that I can actually stand up uh, out of bed today. All right. I also need to send some stuff to the new editor, who, if they want me to, I'll introduce them uh, to all of you later. But yeah, I feel bad. I've been bleh, this week, and I need to get this first video up that's ready uploaded for you guys. I had to wait to hear back from someone before posting it, but now I'm ready, so I'm going to go ahead and post it. Um, and then I need to get my next video sent over, so they can get started on that. All right. So, do. Okay, Ukraine war briefing. Russia vows to retaliate. Yeah, here we go. Come on. Oh, I forgot to post the link. This one is also from The Guardian. And this I found kind of funny, or I guess, ironic a little bit. Um, so, Russia has vowed to retaliate after the channels of its state. Okay, Ukraine war briefing. Russia vows to retaliate after state media reportedly blocked on Telegram in EU. So, mind you, Telegram itself, I don't think, has completely been blocked. Only Russian state media has been blocked. So, those accounts have been blocked in the European Union, and they are very salty about it. Um, and look, I don't want to be the one who says you have to ban propaganda because they're saying the wrong things. Because at the end of the day, propaganda is horrible, and you do need to fight back against it. Um, but also, for better or for worse, the free ability to transmit information is also important. I think the big thing to take away from it is like state run propaganda from other countries that should be blocked. I mean, um, absolutely. Like it's really obvious the funding comes from a foreign government. It exists so that basically it is pushing the perspective or it's information warfare. And every country, every single country, whatever your opinion of those outlets are, has outlets like this. Russia has RT and TASS. The United States has all of the Radio Free, Radio Liberty channels, and there are a lot of them. And they do good. I actually like them. They do good work, but also, I'll be the first to admit, yeah, I mean, they are funded by the U.S. government, and they push American interests before anything else. Sometimes they will put, not just sometimes, they will push American interests, even if it's at the cost of the interests of other people around the world. And the same is true for any state-funded outlet. Al Jazeera, I actually find a lot of their reporting to be interesting and quite useful. They are funded by the nation of Qatar, and yeah, man, um, you will never see criticism of certain specific governments or fundamentalist interpretations of Islam or positive coverage of secular democratic ex-Muslims. Um, you won't see that on there because it would go against what the Qatari government um, wants to be put out into the information sphere. However, they do cover some very important and interesting topics around the world, especially in the Americas, North and South, also in Asia. They're probably one of the only ones who cover the colonization of West Papua, the occupation of West Papua by the Indonesian government. So anyway, my point being that it's really interesting because propaganda outlets, and let's not use the word propaganda, let's just say instead state-run outlets, because I feel like there are some state-run outlets that I would 100% call propaganda, and others that I would say it's state-run media, but it's not quite at the level um, of bias and hostility toward anything that goes against their narrative, like destroying smaller competitors. That I would call it propaganda. And there are also privately funded examples of this. There are privately funded independent media outlets that I respect and consider to be good news sources, and there are others like Fox News or Newsmax or One America News or a lot of other far right, quote unquote news outlets around the world. Democracy Now, if we want an example of far left, Democracy Now, I consider to be a propaganda outlet, and it's a small and I believe relatively independently funded, uh, you know, propaganda outlet. But again, it's hard. Like everyone has a different opinion of what is legitimate news and what is propaganda, and that's what makes it so hard because it'll vary. It'll vary from person to person. I know people who agree with me a lot, for example, on a lot of issues, but they wouldn't agree with me about Democracy Now being a propaganda outlet because they report on enough things that they identify with, that they have strong feelings about, that that news coverage to them is legitimate news. So anyway, I got off on a tangent. My point being that I find it ironic, though, because Telegram, even though it's had issues with the Russian government, is originally from Russia, even though the creators are now Caribbean citizens, St. Kitts and Nevis, and they're rich as hell. Last that I heard, at least. Um, but they're real salty because they realize, oh man, our state funded propaganda channel, that's actually been really helpful. You have a lot of uh poorly educated or impoverished, you know, uh, those who just don't have a lot of money. You have a lot of impoverished people, and you have a lot of poorly educated people who lean conservative, and we can convert those European conservatives to far right radicalists. Don't block us, you know. So yeah. Anyway, back to reading this instead of going off on a tangent like I tend to do. Russia has vowed to retaliate after the channels of its state media were apparently blocked on the popular Telegram social media platform in the EU. On Sunday, the channels of RIA Novosti news agency, Rossiya 1, Pervia Canal, and NTV Television, and Izvestia and Rossiyskaya Gazeta newspapers were not accessible in several countries, including France, Belgium, Poland, Greece, the Netherlands, and Italy. Wow, so it was several of them. Interesting. According to media reports, neither Telegram nor EU sources have yet commented on the disruption. Moscow called the move, quote, an act of censorship, the systematic cleansing of all undesirable sources of information from the information space continues. Russia has the gall to say that, given their modern history and their history as the Soviet Union? Yeah, okay. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said the EU had previously banned Russian state media such as RIA Novosti, Izvestia, and Rossiyskaya Gazeta from being distributed in the bloc, accusing them with disseminating propaganda. Yeah, and it's a rightful accusation. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, like I said, one man's news is another man's propaganda, and vice versa. Um, yeah, it's the Cold War. The Cold War never ends. The Cold War never ends. I don't care if it's 1910 or 2010 or 2025. There's always a Cold War. And I think that if more of us actually remembered that and kept that in mind, then perhaps our populations would be a bit less. Well, perhaps people would take it upon themselves to educate themselves a bit more. Azerbaijan's president, Ilham Aliyev. Oh, this is just like last time. It is. Oh. What the heck? Is this just a tiny recap of recent news? I swear, if I clicked on if this is the second time I've got one that doesn't load properly, I'll be so annoyed. Let's see. Yeah, this article is just a highlight of multiple things. All right, well, yeah, let's go ahead and read it because we already have it open anyway. All right. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev said on Sunday that the Azerbaijani airliner that crashed last week was shot down by Russia. So the president is officially stating this. albeit unintentionally, as he criticized Moscow for trying to hush up the issue. We can say with complete clarity that the plane was shot down by Russia. We are not saying that it was done intentionally, but it was done, he told Azerbaijani state television. Aliyev said that the airliner, which crashed in Kazakhstan on Wednesday and killed 38 of the 67 on board, was hit by fire from the ground over Russia and rendered uncontrollable by electronic warfare. Aliyev accused Russia of trying to hush up the issue for several days, saying he was upset and surprised by versions of events put forward by Russian officials. The Kremlin said that air defense systems were firing near Grozny, the regional capital of the Russian Republic of Chechnya, where the plane attempted to land to deflect a Ukrainian drone strike. Doesn't surprise me. Chechnya is majority Muslim. Azerbaijan is majority Muslim. Would make sense that even if they aren't on the best of terms with the Kremlin, that Azerbaijan would still maintain ties with Chechnya. I actually don't know about Azerbaijan Turkish Chechen ties. I'm sure that they exist, but I don't know how extensive they are or not. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Monday that Jimmy Carter, who died aged 100, served as U.S. president when Ukraine was not yet independent, but his heart stood firm with us in our ongoing fight for freedom. We deeply appreciate his steadfast commitment to Christian faith and democratic values, as well as his unwavering support for Ukraine in the face of Russia's unprovoked aggression. Zelensky said on X, "Today, let us remember, peace matters, and the world must remain united in standing against those who threaten these values." Well, a big thank you to President Zelensky. That is very nice. A lot of people have been honoring Jimmy Carter around the world. A probe of the sabotaged Baltic Sea power cable has uncovered a drag trail stretching dozens of kilometers on the seabed. Finnish police said on Sunday, on Christmas Day, the Estlink 2 submarine cable that carries electricity from Finland to Estonia was disconnected from the grid just over a month after two telecommunications cables were severed in Swedish territorial waters in the Baltic. Finnish authorities have been investigating the Eagle S oil tanker that sailed from a Russian port over suspected sabotage. The investigation has revealed a dragging track on the seabed, police said on Sunday, adding the trail had been identified from the beginning to the end. The cable's disconnection was the latest in a spate of incidents Western officials believe are acts of sabotage linked to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Let's see. Anna says posting facts is my interest, not propaganda as much as possible. Yep, precisely. Same. Yeah, exactly. Oh, hey. Oh, and people were actually commenting on it. Yeah, people. Oh. Aussie Bugga says, I posted a good doco on Blue Sky by an Australian journalist who recently snuck into West Papua, a very rare. Ooh. Okay, Aussie, I am going to message you later today. I would really love that link. Actually, it's so funny because I have been so busy. I've just been too damn busy, which is why I'm super glad to finally have people helping with the channel. Again, thank you to everybody who's doing that, or offering to do that. But I need to make a Blue Sky account, and I think I'll. Yeah, I don't care too much about having a personal one, but I definitely should make one for Tridents Against Tyrants. So I will go ahead and do that very soon. Um, and on Blue Sky, if I could get the link to that, I would really appreciate it because, uh, yeah, I follow the West Papua situation, and I find it very interesting because what I see from Indonesian nationalists is often, but the quality of life would be so much worse, and there would be chaos, and there's not enough human capital and expertise. West Papua would end up as poor and impoverished and corrupt as, you know, as Papua New Guinea next door after Australia, after they got independence from Australia. And to that I say, yeah, but it's still their right to self-determination. And you're just coming up with the same those are the same exact excuses that colonialists used, that the British and the French and the Dutch, everyone used during the colonial era. We can't, give African nations or nations in the Middle East or nations in various parts of Asia independence, what would they do without us? Everything would fall apart. There would be strife and poverty and possibly a civil war. Well, that's not your problem. Like you're you're not actually integrating and helping and highlighting support for people in West Papua. You're just taking resources. When's the last time I heard about West Papuans, Melanesian people, having prominent roles in Indonesian society, like widespread, like an attempt to really integrate and forge closer ties between the people in West Papua and the rest of Indonesia? I haven't heard about that recently. That's because it's not really happening all that much. Because those resources are a lot more valuable than trying to integrate a people group that Indonesia really doesn't seem to care about too much. Anyway, I'm going to go off on another tangent if I'm not careful, but thank you very much. I would love to take a look at that. Uh, AJ is so sly. The Emir does not spend billions a year promoting impartial info. So yeah, everybody. I'm seeing a lot of stuff about RT and Al Jazeera and Democracy Now. Yeah, exactly. And kind of like I was saying before, one man's news is another man's propaganda, and vice versa. So the conversations we could have on various news outlets would be endless. Um. All right. No other questions. All right, let's finish this out because there's only a little bit left. Alexei Bugayev, a former member of Russia's national soccer team who played at Euro 2004, has been killed in the 34-month-old war in Ukraine. Russian media quoted his father and agent as saying on Sunday, "Unfortunately, the news about Alexei's death is true. It happened today." TASS news agency quoted the player's father, Ivan Bugayev, as telling the Sport 24 news outlet. Uh, okay. RAA news agency quoted Bugayev's agent, Anton Smirnov, as saying intense fighting had made it impossible to retrieve Bugayev's body for burial. In September, Bugayev was sentenced by a court in southern Russia to 9.5 years in prison on drug trafficking charges. He later declared his intention to sign up to fight in the Ukraine war. Russian authorities actively recruit in prisons for the conflict. Interesting. Wow. Really? So hold on. This guy went from Russian national soccer team to drug trafficking to sentenced to 9.5 years in prison to saying that he would sign up to fight in Ukraine. Wow, that is a huge fall from. That's a huge fall. I mean, I won't say fall from grace because, as we all know, looking back at history, going all the way back to the Soviet Union, when it comes to sports, Russia doesn't really play fair, just like with everything else they do. Steroids. But yeah, wow. I can see why that was highlighted. Like they're not just getting any convicts; they're getting people who are, former Olympic level and uh, you know, World Cup and Euro Cup athletic stars, and they're going to the front lines. Wow. Sakartvelo, Republic of Georgia, inaugurated a far-right governing party loyalist, Mikhail Kavelashvili, as president on Sunday, ratcheting up a months-long political crisis that has seen huge pro-European Union demonstrations. Kavelashvili, a former professional footballer, is backed by the Georgian Dream Party, which has accused the West of trying to drag Tbilisi into the Ukraine conflict. All right, all right. Let me hold on. There we go. Sorry, I had a quick message I needed to send someone that was related to the channel. All right. We could go more into the situation in Republic of Georgia, um, but it's pretty much, to the best of my knowledge, shoot, hold on. Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, basically, this sums it up pretty well. The legitimate president, Salom Zorabichvili, she's been forced to leave the buildings of the government. So I guess she's not out of country, but I guess you could say she's part of the way into becoming a president in exile, much like the legitimate Russian president or interim president, Sikhanovskaya. Um, but yeah, the installed puppet president, um, Gavelashvili, there have been protests against him as illegitimate, protests against the government as a whole. In Georgia, it is a protest. In Sakartvelo, it is Maidan right now. And they need support, they need help. During the protests, everything that was happening in Ukraine, they at least had the benefit of having bordering nations where there could be some support from like sympathetic uh, Polish citizens or Romanian citizens or others before the war started in 2014 who took an interest and might stand with the protesters. Uh, Republic of Georgia doesn't have that. Republic of Georgia, there's maybe there's the possibility of some sympathetic Turkish citizens and some sympathetic Armenian citizens who might help out. But I'd say that's about it. And pro EU Turkish citizens and pro EU Armenian citizens have their own problems to worry about in both of their countries, like a lot more than citizens in Poland or Romania. So there's no guarantee how much support they will have externally. It all comes down to the people on the ground, the protesters in Georgia itself. And yeah, we're at the 1 month mark. 2 months from now, we will see what happens because once it approaches a quarter of a year, 3 months of protest, if it's nonstop, if it never ends, then we may see something happen. I don't know what, but something that puts enough pressure on the Georgian Dream Party. But until then, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say what's going to happen because it takes more than just protest. It takes financial pressure, political pressure. You have to convince police and soldiers to be willing to stand with you on your side. You have to have the security apparatus of the regime actually splinter, and that is difficult. But yeah, I'd say it comes down to the people of Sakartvelo, both the students and all other protesters on the streets and the police. If you can get half the police to throw down their weapons and say I'm done, or join the protesters, say I'm done, this is ridiculous, and they're right, I'm not going to continue to prop up this government, then they can do it. But that's easier said than done. Anyway, all right. On to the deep state map. Let's continue. Hold on. Where? There's the tab I need. David N says, I like how Sakai pronounces words, especially the R. Do I say R? An R? Now I'm questioning my pronunciation of the letter R. Uh, I guess I roll my tongue a little bit is probably what it would be with R's when I pronounce them. Uh, oh, do I have a link to the Discord? Oh, yeah. Ronnie, feel free to join us back in the Discord. I didn't know that there was crap going on. But yeah, if you want to come back in, we would more than welcome you. Absolutely. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Oh, yeah, example of colonialism. I guess neo-colonialism. France did bad deals in the Sahel, Cheryl says. Um, yep. Blue Sky is good. Yeah, I've liked Blue Sky so far. We'll see how it continues to develop over time. Okay, perfect. Next. Oh, I'm the first person who pronounced your name perfectly. All right, awesome. Uh, all right, next. Trying to drag Tbilisi. Okay, let's go ahead and close the article and get the deep state map ready. And then we'll finish up because we're already past 2 hours of streaming. Thank you, everyone who has stuck with the stream for this long. All right. I could switch to a new window, but I really don't want to. We'll just make this work with this size. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's see. All right, so let's take a look at everything happening in Kursk. So it's been a lot of small losses of territory, but remember, of course, this territory isn't Ukrainian. This is for securing negotiations with Russia and forcing Russia to split their forces. I also want to highlight something super important for those who are supporters of both Ukraine and Republic of Georgia. Guys, we've all heard about North Korean soldiers over here in the Kursk region and how Russia has been, you know, basically trading with North Korea in order to get, you know, more soldiers without having to expend their own forces over here in Kursk. Anyone who's a supporter of the protesters in the Republic of Georgia, make sure to highlight the fact that Russia is desperate. I mean, both sides have problems with manpower. It is not good. There is an issue. There's an issue with for Russia, they don't want to spread their forces thin. For Ukraine, there's a morale. There is currently a morale issue, unfortunately, and there have been some desertions. So both sides, there is war weariness on both sides. But the fact that they haven't been able to take this back, they're having to get recruits from another country outside of Russia, or rather, I don't know if they have to or not, but in order to avoid strain, that's strongly what they're preferring. And yeah, basically, the fact that Russia is doing that at all to begin with, it's very telling. Uh, and so, for Georgians who are worried about war, they just need to remember that Russia does not have infinite manpower and resources. Um, this is very unfortunate. We are seeing here, as you can see, this is the Donbass. This is Donetsk, or rather, this area even outside of Donetsk. Um, they are getting close to this border right here and surrounding Pokrovsk. It is not looking good for Pokrovsk in Ukraine. Um, And yeah, like Russia is doing everything they can to take as much land as possible, and Ukraine's doing everything that they can, but Russia doesn't care if they get up to 1 million casualties. What what Ukraine really needs at this point, more, I mean, they definitely need equipment, they need weapons, but more than that, they need allies who actually send troops. Even if they are logistics troops, even if they are troops who just help out with delivering resources in western Ukraine and Kiev and other places, air defense systems to protect those soldiers when it comes to logistics, and soldiers who are willing to do work that Ukrainians are doing, back behind the front lines. If at least one country would officially and openly do that, then yeah, I think we could see exchange. We could see exchange in morale. We could see Ukrainian soldiers who continue to fight and don't feel as though they have been left to fend for themselves as a country. Um, Ideally, we should have armed troops willing to fight alongside Ukrainians, but of course, everyone in the world is too concerned about that. North Korea isn't concerned, and they've got nuclear weapons. Russia, of course, doesn't give a damn, and they've got nuclear weapons. The West is appearing weak. It really, really is. And no one seems to care anymore. And with Trump coming into office, it makes it even worse because he will be the first to open his loud mouth and highlight anything if, for example, France actually did send soldiers and highlight, oh, they're gonna start World War III, and oh, this is going to harm the perfect. I had the perfect plan. I had the perfect plan to end this war and have peace. But then one of those Europeans, their country of Europe, they decided to send soldiers into Ukraine. I think Ukraine's a part of Europe, but I'm not 100% certain. Maybe I should go ask Putin. Yeah, we'll hear something like that out of the orange man's mouth. Anyway, um, yeah, so this is not looking good. If they get, let's say, if they get, they're not going to stop at this border. If they get Pokrovsk and they keep moving west, it's a long ways before they get to something like uh, Orekiv or Vilnyansk or Pavlorad. Um, but it will basically redraw borders even further. Because then we'll see part of this Ukrainian oblast fall under Russian occupation. We're going to see portions of Ukraine that have not been subject to occupation, small villages and towns over here, end up falling under enemy control. And then, all of these borders that you see here will either end up remaining that way, and there will be huge arguments for decades to come about whether or not these lines on this map need to be redrawn or not, or uh, like I have hoped will happen one day, we'll see an eventual balkanization of Russia and an opportunity to liberate and free all of this. Um, because really it comes down to those two options. Like, if you look at all of this occupied land by the enemy, it's like it's like a really big version of Transnistria. Oh shoot. My laptop battery is going to die. I will be right back. All right. Sorry about that. Let me clarify what I was saying. Um, it's not viable as an independent nation state, but like Transnistria still exists, even though the Soviet Union, which once claimed it, you know, has disintegrated. Moldova is independent, but Transnistria claims to be, very pro-Russian, very sympathetic to the Soviet Union. It's not large enough or viable enough as an independent nation. Um, it has no sea access. Even Moldova doesn't. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Moldova Moldova has this. This is as much access to the sea as the nation of Moldova has. And in order to get out to the sea to trade, they have to go through Ukraine, not Romania, Ukraine. They have to go through Ukrainian uh, aquatic naval territory. Uh, and so it's a really bad situation and it doesn't work. Transnistria does not work. This over here, like let's say the Russian Federation one day balkanized. And, then there's the question of reunification, assuming the war ends with as a frozen conflict. And then there's the question of reunification with Ukraine. Well, if this entire population that's been under brutal occupation is basically brainwashed and really pro-Russia, and like you know babushkas and people who are living here actually end up upset about a balkanization of the Federation decades from now, well, then what would the big problem there would then be, will we see a repeat of Transnistria? Would we see these territories instead, this swath of land try to claim itself as independent? Would we see Crimea try to claim itself as an independent nation like Cyprus? There's so much chaos. And because there's so much more sea access, there's so much more opportunity for this war to unravel in so many different ways. It could end with full unification for Ukraine. It could end with Russia never balkanizing and continuing to hold on to these stolen lands. It could end with Russia balkanizing and that resulting in a diplomatic opportunity for reunification with Ukraine. It could end with Russia balkanizing and then Crimea and maybe part of these occupied territories having, like being put into a position where they possibly tried to declare themselves as independent. It's it's so messy. And let me be clear, with all of these different scenarios that I'm mentioning, I want all of these territories to return to Ukrainian control. Okay? They were illegally stolen. The people there, you know, don't deserve to live under the same Russian boot that anyone in Moscow, St. Petersburg, Siberia. The quality of life is shit in Russia. The quality of life is shit. I mean, I'm just going to say it for a lot of people outside of Western Russia, outside of the main cities uh, of Moscow and St. Petersburg. Being poor in Russia is not a fun situation to go through. And like Russia's not going to care enough about this stolen land to treat people really well here. Um, they want to turn Crimea into like their own version of Hawaii or Jeju Island for the U.S. or South Korea. Um, but it's not going to happen. It really isn't. Um, I don't know. Anyway, my point being that something needs to change. And the allies of Ukraine need to realize that this is something that's not going away. And this is something that if you want Ukraine to actually give a damn, actually care, long term, want to be a part of the EU and NATO and, the West as a whole, and not 10, 20, 50 years from now end up with political instability and, future generations who end up going far right, like in the way of Hungary, or uh, far left in the way of Slovakia or Croatia when it comes to their their treat their domestic affairs and their relations with countries like Russia. That's not going to happen after this war. You won't. You're not ever going to see warming ties between Ukraine and Russia, I don't think, or at least not within our lifetime. That would take like a minimum of 100 years. This war is too horrific. There's been too much death. This is a bad blood that's going to exist for generations, many generations. My point being that, yeah, with all of this, I don't think people fully process how much of a clusterfuck this is going to be for decades to come, even after this war is over. Maybe they process it, but it's not something that's fully given the attention or the gravity that it should be. Um, we're looking at decades of military and political instability and competition here, and it's going to be ugly. Anyway, I guess that's about it, mostly because, as you can see, it's not a good situation on the Eastern Front. Over in Luhansk, oh man, it's not good here either. Look, Kupiansk is getting ready to be surrounded. The enemy has been slowly, very slowly gaining ground, but here recently they're starting to it's adding up. It piles up. And Kupiansk is getting to where it's being surrounded. Pokrovsk is getting to where it's not fully surrounded, but it's going to be a siege, and they're pushing toward Udachne and wanting to surround all of this, get fire control of this road here. Um, all I can say is, as far as the biggest backers of Ukraine, we see pledges, we see promises. You know what? You know what? Here's what I'm going to say. We need less promises. We need less press conferences with politicians in suits talking about this many 100 million or this many billions of dollars or euros or pounds worth of equipment are going to be delivered. Stop talking money. Yes, we need to know what the monetary value is. That's great. But show the material resources. Don't just announce them, but videotape it and widely disseminate every single delivery of equipment that can be done publicly, that isn't meant to be, careful, strategic, clandestine delivery. We need to see less articles and videos about promises of deliveries and more articles and videos about actual deliveries. And I mean video evidence that the public can see. Here are 10 vehicles. Here are 50 vehicles. Here are 10,000 rifles. Here are, you know, 15 more Patriot systems, 20 more HIMARS, ammunition for them all, and in detail cover all of that as it's being handed off to Ukrainian forces. That's what we see with the small time deliveries, with independent deliveries like with what Anton does when he delivers to the 110th Mechanized Brigade, or like with the NAFO truck handoffs. People aren't talking about, we've promised to send this much. They're showing the results and the delivery. Nation states need to, at the minimum, start doing this and doing it frequently, or they need to actually send in some troops of some sort, even if they're logistics, troops away from the front line. So, anyway, sorry, I got a little upset. But if we don't see something change, then of course, Ukraine won't be able to hold the line. They keep getting promises, and then either only a finite amount of what they've been promised or broken promises. Trust in the announcements of deliveries could very quickly start to degrade, especially when we see the results on the battlefield, man. Ukraine needs both equipment and manpower. And if the West isn't willing to help with manpower, like it should, then at the very least it needs to stop placating citizens and make a real strong effort at constantly showing the brand new equipment for Ukraine and prove that it's being delivered. That's my opinion. But then again, it's a game of woulda, shoulda, coulda. I'm not in control of making those decisions, and bureaucracy is always an impediment in war. So, yeah, only time will tell how things unfold in 2025. But looking at the map, if things keep going the way that they are, if things keep going the way that they are, then yeah, the more territory that Russia takes, that's more territory that will have to be sorted through later on, either in a second war or in subsequent events that come to pass years from now after this war is over. The West needs to do more. Period. That is my opinion. Anyway, sorry to not leave on a happy note, but that's the reality. Sometimes there isn't a happy note to leave on. And yeah, 30 tanks seem to be worth several $billions. Yeah, that's the other thing. A lot of this equipment is quite expensive and being provided at, yeah, when maybe there are certain options that could be more affordable to help arm more Ukrainian soldiers. But quality is also a property all its own, aside from quantity. So it can vary pretty drastically depending on what equipment is being delivered. Nick Ashton says, degrade at this point, Biden. Oh, let me also unpin this message from a while back. Degrade at this point, Biden's legacy is as a bold faced liar. Yeah, honestly, yeah, thought 2024 was real bad, but if Ronnie Vranken says thought 2024 was real bad, but if France and Germany fall to nutcases, the EU could fall. I mean, it's possible. I don't think the EU would completely fall, but what's a better comparison? You know how the what is it, the CSTO, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, the Russian version of NATO, uh, is basically a paper tiger that doesn't do anything. Um, I mean, because of that, I would say that the EU and NATO by extension fall dangerously close with things like the United States, with Donald Trump saying he would take the US out of NATO, or with the possibility of far right and far left governments taking control in the EU and possibly wanting to pull them out of the EU, like how the United Kingdom pulled out. They run the risk of becoming much less influential organizations, becoming uh, rump organizations, becoming shells of their former selves. And so, if NATO and the EU collectively are not careful, NATO could end up as impotent as the CSTO, and the EU could become as ineffective as current EU alternatives that don't really have the best trade deals or the best results in financial prosperity, economic prosperity for member states. Um, And then that as a whole, if that happens, you think it's bad right now how Europe, despite its size, should be a much bigger global player instead of the individual countries kind of doing their own thing. I mean, we've talked about balkanization of Russia or China or the United States. It could happen to Europe as a whole, to the European Union as a whole. Technically, it wouldn't be because they're already independent nation states as opposed to a single federal entity. But you get my point. Um, Anyone who cares about the EU, about NATO, about the quality of life for themselves and their relatives in Europe, fight back. Fight back against this information warfare. Do whatever you can within your power. Write to your government. Start a YouTube channel. Do fundraising. Get into a vehicle and go deliver some supplies to Ukrainians. Go help protesters, whether they're in Republic of Georgia or they're in your own country, wherever it might be, who are standing up against this extremist on both ends of the spectrum, far right, and in some countries it does exist, far left um, populism that is spreading like wildfire. Because as a whole, Canadians, Americans, Europeans, and free people all around the world, in every country, Mexicans, people in the Middle East, people all across the world, but most especially in what has for a long time been a relatively united Western alliance. I'll use that term because it's not just the West. There's also nations like South Korea and Japan who are involved, but those are a part of those nations that have historically had good business, political, and military ties. If we don't stand up against this united, if we become apathetic, or if we keep thinking, I'm doing something, I'm doing enough, but we don't realize that it's not enough, if we stay complacent, we will sacrifice our democracies. And we will sacrifice our peace as well. Because the destabilization of democracies, once you see various forms of authoritarianism, whether it's communism, fascism, or theocracy, or authoritarianism by any other name, you inevitably will see conflict, you will inevitably see war. So it's up to us in order to stand up against that in whatever ways that we can. Anyway, that's my opinion on the topic. And yeah, I hope that I hope that it is one that others agree with or it resonates with someone else here. I constantly am asking myself, am I doing enough? And my answer to myself every single time is hell no. There's always more you can do. And that's why I'm always so damn busy. so so please forgive me when sometimes it seems like, you know, maybe things are a little slow on the channel because I try to stay involved in a lot of stuff. Anyway, all right, with that, guys, um, I'm going to make a quick. I'm sorry, I just realized that from YouTube Studio, I have an option to give myself a super chat, which I didn't know was a thing. I don't know why that's a thing, but apparently I could if I wanted to. Anyway, um, uh, oh, Ronnie Franken is asking, does anyone know someone who knows how to configure a Linux mail server here? Uh, I might be able to help out with that, Ronnie. If you want to reach out to me at tridentsagainst-tyrants@gmail.com, we could chat a little bit about it. Um, but yeah, uh, I've got some experience with working with different, well, just in general, working with tech. I might be able to help you out with that. Or, oh wait, uh, oh, oh, also Ronnie Branca knew, yeah, I think you two have probably seen each other in chats before, but for anyone who isn't familiar, the user in chat who goes by the name The Real Vladimir Putin is very anti-Putin. He's got his own YouTube channel, I think, also, where he posts just kind of everyday humorous stuff. So, yeah, The Real Vladimir Putin, the user account, he's cool. Um, if he's the same real Vladimir Putin I've seen all over the place, which I'm pretty sure he is, and he does a lot of trolling against Russians and against Putin. All right. Oh shoot, we just got a donation, a super chat. Hey, thank you, Mitch Ashdown. I appreciate that, man. Do you want that to go as a reminder? This is my policy. Whenever I get a super chat, I always repeat this message. Um, if a person wants a super chat donation to go towards soldiers, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, super chats go towards supporting the channel. Um, and I do it like that because for some people, super chats are the only way that works for them to be able to donate. And if you want that to go to soldiers, I will cover the transfer cost. That's unless you send me like literally $1,000 over super chats, that I will ask you to please do that over PayPal. Please don't make me pay those transfer costs. But otherwise, yeah, no, awesome. Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate it, man. All right, guys. With that, Mitch Ashton says for the channel. Awesome. Appreciate it, man. Um, and yep, with that, we're gonna go ahead and damn it, I forgot what I was gonna do. Last thing I'm gonna do before the very last thing we're gonna do before I run off to take care of all the other things I need to do today. I am making my usual donation. Sending it to Anton. I'm gonna send $50. And anyone who wishes to contribute to getting more supplies to the 110th Mechanized Brigade, feel free to join. Let's see. 4 drones for 110th Brigade. You know, I often put messages like that when I make donations, and it makes me realize not just Russia. Anytime I travel internationally, I better start checking which countries are on good terms or bad terms with Russia, which ones have extradition agreements, because yeah. I feel like there's enough of a paper trail that if I went to some place like, I don't know, maybe Tajikistan, I have no reason to, but if I did, they might be like, "Oh yeah. Yeah, hold on. We have someone from the Moscovian embassy who wishes to speak with you." Uh fuck Russia. All right, that's going to be my final message for the stream. Thanks for coming, everybody. I will send out emails to everybody. I'm going to go ahead and see about setting up that video to post right now. And yeah, thanks for coming. Slava Ukraini. Keep supporting Ukraine. Keep fighting against authoritarians wherever they might be in the world. Thanks, everybody. All right, bye. Oh, hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. I see something. Did the president of Georgia give away her leverage by stepping down? She hasn't stepped. Let me see. I don't think she stepped down, Cheryl, unless I am mistaken. Because what happened is she left the office. She left like the presidential palace. Um, Zora. Yeah, she refuses to quit. You're saying that yesterday she stepped down. I don't see any news about her officially stepping down. She hasn't relinquished the title of president. What she has done is she's vacated the premises of the government buildings in order to avoid being arrested and basically becoming just a martyr figure like Navalny. Because you got to remember, it's not like Ukraine when Russia invaded and Zelensky said, "I don't need a ride, I need ammunition." They don't have ammunition, and they don't have any supporters who are coming to their rescue in Georgia. Um, in Georgia, they're trying to be strategic like they were in Belarus, and only time will tell if it works out or not. But she hasn't given up the title of president. The only real question, though, is will the international community recognize her as president? And that's the real issue. That's the rub of it all. Um, so what she has now is a decision to make about whether or not she will launch a competing government. Basically, not just a shadow government, but announce a separate government from the current illegitimate ruling regime and find a way to garner enough support domestically and abroad to overthrow the Georgian dream, either through protest or through conflict. Georgia is looking at either long-term protests that have enough political and strategic success to overthrow the Georgian dream, like happened in Ukraine and surprised many people around the world, or uh, or for it to fall into a civil war. And if it falls into a civil war, the side that's got Russia's military support and financial support will probably fare better than the side that doesn't, because the only places that would funnel money into her side would probably be um, Turkey, Armenia. Turkey probably wouldn't, but maybe they could be convinced to do so, or foreign governments using Armenia and Turkey as like negotiating to allow their funds to pass through those two countries to Sakartvelo. Um, it's a rough situation. Either they repeat Ukraine's success with protest, or Georgia becomes Belarus. There really isn't an in between. The future will either be a Belarusian style Georgia or it will be a liberated Georgia that then will have the threat of Russia potentially thrust upon it once more, like the 90s and 2008. But yeah, um, okay, with that, I think we can close out the stream. The new bastard took office. Well, the new bastard, he was appointed. You know, he was voted in by a one party rule party. It's kind of like saying, what should Sikhanouskaya have done over in Belarus? Should she have stayed, been arrested, and died in prison like her husband? Or should she have gone abroad, linked up with the 100-year-old government in exile in Canada, the Rada, and then started to muster their own military, which they have done. The Belarusian exile military fights alongside and trains with the Ukrainian military. It's small. It can't fight against Belarus by itself, but it exists. So yeah, it's hard to say. Sometimes you have to live to fight another day, but yeah, it is disgraceful that the international community doesn't stand by Georgia more than it does. Well, at all, really. Yeah, bad geography and too few people. Yeah, exactly, Cheryl. It's it's a it's a beautiful and unique country, but it's also one that in a different universe where Armenia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, all of that drama didn't exist, all three countries got along and were very close with and uh, supportive of the EU and NATO. In that universe, Georgia would stand a much better chance. In this universe, no. It's it looks it's a rock and a hard place. Things are going to be very hard for Georgians, unfortunately. I predict. And that does make my heart bleed. But all we can do is keep fighting and do everything that we can and keep doing more. If you ever feel like you're going to burn out, find a way to just kind of step back for a moment and then jump right back into the fray. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. Have a great day. And again, Slava Ukraini and Slava Sakartvelo. Bye, everybody.